Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jerry Song. Jaspreet Sanda and I are the STEAM coordinators for the Division of Instruction. So today we are presenting the STEAM PD for Spotify's Soundtrap app. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but my first experience with it was actually seeing students actually creating the background music for their rap, specifically addressing climate change. And so again, we're seeing students really utilize this as a tool to accomplish a greater purpose and to contribute to the greater solution of many of our world's problems. So I'd like to introduce you to Justin Grimes. He's again from Spotify, and he's going to share with us this incredible resource that hopefully will again become a tool for our students. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon to everybody that is here today. My name is Justin. I am representing Soundtrap for Education, which is a Spotify part of the Spotify family. Today, through this session, I'm hoping to just show you what Soundtrap is for the people who've never heard of it before. Two, to kind of tap into some lessons and resources that we have to kind of get you started with using Soundtrap with your students. And then three, and the most important part for me is I want to give you an ample amount of time to actually go inside of the tool to start working. I'm a firm believer in just not sitting, but actually getting a chance to interact with the tool that you're going to be using. So we'll have time to do that today. Throughout this session, if there are any questions that you have that you would like for me to address, whether that is showing something in the studio when I walk through the studio, or you just have a general question about Soundtrap, feel free to drop that inside of the chat box, and I'll make time to address those questions with you all. All right. So as Jerry mentioned, my name is Justin. I'm a customer success manager. So I'm here to train and support you as teachers throughout your time with Soundtrap. Soundtrap has been with LAUSD now going on for 4 years. And this is my third year being with the Soundtrap team and working with LAUSD. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm a former teacher as well. I taught kindergarten and first grade back in the Atlanta public school system. My colleague, Leandro, who's our account manager, he's also a former educator as well, and spent about 10 years working with Teach for America, placing teachers across LAUSD. So thank you all for having me today. As I mentioned, quick little learning goals, understanding what Soundtrap is, how you can access it via Schoology, because all students and staff have access to Soundtrap via Schoology across LAUSD. We're going to go inside of the studio, look at a couple of different features that we have, start to brainstorm, and then, like I said, at the end, giving you time to start to create something. All I ask during this session is that you all are open to new ideas and new voices. So if there are people who have used Soundtrap before in the past and would like to just speak up and share how you've used it or how your students have been impacted by it, feel free to unmute yourself, drop it in the chat to let people know. I hope this is a safe space for people to be able to share or just be able to practice this new tool. All questions are good questions. So you may think that, hey, I'm a new user, but I don't want to ask this question. No, ask it, because I'm sure 10 other people are probably thinking the same thing. And then the most important thing, have fun. I want this to not just be a session where you're just sitting and listening, but most important, I want you to actually have fun with the tool that you'll hopefully start to use with your students. So before we start, I want to ask two questions. So the first thing, what is one STEAM-related project that you remember the most from your K through 12 experience? You don't have to put it in the chat, but just something to think about. What is one STEAM-related project you remember the most from your K through 12 experience? Yes, construction for the egg job. Yes, I did remember that in 8th grade in elementary school. Did a report on acupuncture. Oh, wow. I've been super interested to try that, actually. Science fair projects, yes. I remember in high school, I took physics and we did a Rube Goldberg machine. So it was we ended up making a roller coaster for the class. Coding and virtual nature walks, life science study. Nice. Thank you. Well, thank you all for sharing those. Yep, science fair projects and role playing. Those are really good as well. So thinking about that project that you remember from your experience, if you could add the A, meaning the arts part, to that project, what would it sound like now? What would it sound or what would it feel like now? So once again, this is just something that you can be thinking about, because it's all going to tie together once you start using Soundtrap. Yep, holistic music accompanying the project. So thinking about ways in which music can help to amplify, the science work, the scientific work that you're doing. A lot of times people don't think that music plays a role in science, but there's actually proven studies about how music can help even with the simplest things of like, sleep, something that's super, super simple, something, music can help with. I know during when like women are pregnant, like, thinking about like that whole like cycle, like how music can play into that. Murals, lyrics, poetry, script writing, storyboards. Yep. So now you're starting to see all these elements of, ELA can come into this, spoken word can come into this, even parts of theater can come into this as well. So thank you all for sharing, and continue to share it in the chat box. I want to continue to build these like examples or just these thoughts that we have, because we're going to be coming back to this. Yep. So learning the musical patterns, repeat, and songs over time, they just change tempo. Yep. Music has a direct correlation to math as well. All right, moving forward. So, what do you know about Soundtrap? So if you can just put it in the chat box, what do you currently know about Soundtrap? If you know a lot, you can say, oh, I'm an expert. If you don't know anything, you can say nothing, basic, ground zero. Just let me know, what do you know about Soundtrap? No worries. No worries. Good. Well, you're actually in the right session today. Nice. Gotcha. So I heard about it from colleagues. Can we use a create podcast? Yep. A bit, and that's okay. It's okay. Using made music seems easy to use, super, super easy. And then once we get in, you'll start to see how easy it is. You can use it with third graders or remote teaching. They made songs. Wow. Help students create and record in all subjects. Yep. All right. So we got a kind of a general gist of like what we think Soundtrap is. Some of us have never used it before, which is okay. And then the last question I want to ask you to the group, pose to the group is, what do you hope to learn by the end of this workshop? So by the end, when 4:30 hits, what is maybe one thing that you hope to take away from this workshop? Learn how to create podcasts with students. We can make sure you do that. How you can apply it to your lessons. How to create a simple song. How to integrate into a lesson that is fun. How to use Soundtrap, incorporating the student learning. All right, if something comes to you, and just feel free to put it in the chat box, but we'll move right along. All right, so the very beginning of how to even access Soundtrap through Schoology, it's two ways that you can do it. So if you go to your Schoology like homepage, and if you see at the very top, I'll call it the waffle icon, you'll click on it, and then you'll see the Soundtrap app. Should be right there loaded up. Or if you don't see it at the top, you can actually go inside of one of your own courses that you teach, go on the left-hand side, go all the way down, and you'll see the Soundtrap app right there. So I'm going to give everyone about a minute to do that. So could you go ahead and go into Schoology and go ahead and launch Soundtrap? All right, so once again, if you can go ahead and go inside of Schoology and go ahead and launch Soundtrap, you can find it on that homepage, Soundtrap, or go inside of one of your courses. Go on the left-hand side, go down to the bottom, you should see the Soundtrap app. All right, moving along. So I'm gonna go ahead now, I'm gonna dive into the studio. So once you all have Soundtrap open, you should see a projects page that looks just like what I'm showing you on the screen. This is where all of your projects will be housed at, and as your students start to build out their projects, their page will mirror this page as well. So as you can see, over time, your projects will start to build up, and you'll start to see different ones that you've created. Now, once you've gone to this page, now you're like, okay, I'm ready to start creating. So what you'll do is you'll go to Enter Studio. Once you're inside of the studio, it's going to give you two options. So you can do music or you can do podcasting. For today's sake, we'll click on podcast, but I'll make note of the difference between music and podcast. Once you've clicked on podcast, it opens up to this blank and empty canvas where you will start to create at. So as I walk through this, I'm going to highlight different features that you can start to, like, as you think about your own lessons or your own activities that are coming up, how you can maybe use one of these features to implement into something that you're getting ready to work on. So the first thing that I always think is important is when you get in to set up the recording. So that's like the first thing that you need to do. So if you go to add new track, click on voice and mic here. And then you're going to do two things before you start to record. You want to get it ready to test your voice just to make sure that the audio is picking up. So you'll click on the gear and the speaker here. You'll hit start test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Then it checks your voice, you hit done. Then right next to it, you'll hit this drop down and just make sure that your correct headphones are set in. When students are recording, if it's best if they can have those wired headphones, meaning the headphones they can plug into the side of their Chromebooks. If they don't have that, that's okay as well. They can just talk right into the speaker. I know that inside of classrooms, it's many students in there, so there's just a lot of noise that'll happen. Some ways that your students can help to block out that sound, and this may sound silly, but students can put like a jacket or some type of blanket or towel over their head with over the computer as well, and it'll block out some of that sound. Another way I've seen sound being, blocked is if you have like a cardboard box and you cut out the side of the cardboard box, and students can actually place themselves with their computers inside of it to give it that muted, that muffled sound that you'll need. When they're at home and they're recording, if students, honestly, if they go inside of their closet, they can record. During the pandemic, a lot of our professional podcasters were recording the podcast that you may listen to on Spotify in their closets. So that's totally fine as well. And then also, I know sometimes you just can't help it. There's just going to be loud noise. Once you go in and do some editing, you can like lower some of those sounds out. But that's the basics of starting up a recording. Once you've done that, then you can hit record down here at the very bottom. I'm just doing a simple recording, setting this up, showing you how simple and easy it is to set up a recording to start giving your instructions for an assignment that you could want students to do. Yes, there's a question, Rosa.
It's actually just a comment. Our platform is inversed. So just be aware. That was all.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. So once you have set up that, once you've hit complete, you set up your first recording, and I'll go back and I'll play it so that you can hear like what it sounds like. I'm just doing a simple recording, setting this up, showing you how simple and easy it is to set up a recording to start giving your instructions. So it picks up my voice here and there. So for those of you who want to give your students an assignment to work on, this is a way that, oftentimes they're like, I forgot what to do with their assignment, or where are the directions at? Before you get ready to create the assignment, you can give the directions right there through audio. So students can always go back and they'll be able to listen to what you want them to be able to do inside of the project or the assignment that your students are working on. So you could label this track. You could double click. You could say directions here. So when they open the project, they'll be able to see, okay, these are the directions. I can listen to the directions, and then I can mute it. And I can start working on whatever assignment my teacher wants me to work on. Moving forward with that, if you want to go in and add music. So there were a couple of you who talked about ways in which you can add music to enhance the story or enhance the project or the engagement that students are working on. Inside of Soundtrap, we have different modalities that you can use with music. So whether it's the loops library that I'm about to show you, or an actual, virtual keyboard that we have that will come up, and students can play the piano, they can play drums, they can make beats as well. But for the first part, I want to show you is how to add loops inside of your project. So if you go to the right side, the very top here, we have all these different pre-recorded sounds. So they span across different genres, different instruments, and we also have sound effects that your students can incorporate inside of their projects too. If you want to listen to a loop, you just scroll down and you can hit play. Just preview it. And we have over 13,000 different combinations of how you can incorporate these loops. So this is a way that you can give your students choice. And trust me, it'll take them hours and hours and hours to kind of figure out like what sounds they really want inside of the project. Let's see a question. No, it's totally fine. We're going to record it and we'll send those out. Thank you for attending. All right. So let's say your students wanted to, let's do a beat. Let's see here. I'm going to go down. and you can double click to put it to show it can appear inside of the project. So we got a beat, we got a bass. I can double click and I want a piano. So piano, double click. And now I'm going to take my playhead, which is this marker that helps to designate where I am inside of the project. I'm going to take it back to the very beginning. And let's see what all three of the sounds sound like together. So very simple. And I did that under like 30 seconds. I was able to just go through, pick 3 random sounds, put it together. Even though they gave me kind of like a what is it, Law and Order SVU vibes right there. But that's something way in which students can just get super creative with the different music that we have. All the music that we have inside of our Loops library are royalty free. So if your students like to create music outside of the work that they're doing, and they want to, let's say, go stream it somewhere on Spotify, or they go to SoundCloud, or whatever publishing place they want to take it to, they will get all the royalties from that. So you don't have to worry about any copyright, anything. All of these are clear. And so students won't, get in trouble for copyright issues or anything like that. No, you don't have to be very tech savvy to maneuver this app. We have lots of videos, and I'm here, like I said, as a support. So if there's something that you're having trouble on, you can either resort to the videos or you can come to me and I can support you with that. My best advice I would say is allow your students to work with it first, because if they haven't used it inside of your classroom, they've probably used it inside of another classroom or another space before. But also students will be able to figure some things out, maybe before, we as adults can figure these things out. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by this, allow your students the opportunity to work through this, and then they could potentially, help you teach the class, how to use Soundtrap. Once I'm done, I want to go and now collaborate. So let's say I'm working on a group project. We're working on a science fair project, and it's a group project we're working on. And I want to invite 3 other people that are part of my group to my project. Right under the loops, we have the collaboration feature. You can click on invite. And then students can either type the name or the email of the person that they want to invite, or the people they want to invite to be a part of their project. Something that I want to make note about when you are inviting, students are only able to invite students that are in their same group. So for my students that, let's say it's Mr. Garm's first period class, all those students are only able to collaborate with each other. Now, if I'm a, 4th grade teacher and I want to collaborate with the 5th grade classroom, myself and that teacher will need to create a group inside of Schoology and add all those students in there. And then that's how they'll start to be able to create. We just want to protect students and make sure that, a 3rd grader isn't trying to collaborate with the 11th grader and vice versa. So once again, if you want to collaborate, you just go right under the loops here, click on it, click on invite, and then type the name in. Now, for those younger students, so I'll say like kindergarten or TK to, let's say, 1st grade, really, you probably as a teacher, you'll want to go set up those recordings, but you'll want to go set up those collaborations. But for those students who maybe, let's say, 2nd grade and on, you can let them go in and invite the folks that they want to be a part of that project. It's totally up to you and what you want to do. I'll stop right there now and address any questions anyone may have about anything that I just went over, from the loops, adding music, or anything that you've seen. All right, move right along. So once you've done a recording, you've added music into it, I've showed you how to do collaborations. Now, let's say you want to take your transcript, which is the audio, and you want to turn it from audio to text. So this is highlighting on when someone mentioned about script writing, how you could record some audio inside of Soundtrap and then take that text and then you can paste it into a Google Doc. So I'll show you how to transcribe that. Yep, students will have instructional videos to watch as well. I'll share all those things out in the recap, so you'll have those that you'll be able to share with your students. So you'll go down to the bottom where it says transcript, select a voice track, and then I'll transcribe my voice. So I'll hit transcribe. Confirm. And then you can see right here, it takes about a minute for it to load up. And now I'm going to show you. So I'm going to take my playhead back. I'm going to drag it back. I'm going to mute my music. So you just mute your music tracks just by hitting the speaker with the X, mute, mute. And now I just have the one that I was actually talking on. That's the one that's actually live and you're going to be able to hear. So I want you to pay attention to the screen as I press play. I'm just doing a simple recording, setting this up, showing you how simple and easy it is to set up a recording to start giving your instructions for an assignment that you could want students to do. So it follows along with you as it's playing it back, it highlights the text. So your students who may be visual learners are able to see what's actually happening. Now, something really cool about this is, let's say now at the beginning, I'm just doing a simple recording, setting this up. I want to take all of this out. So from I'm to up, I'm going to click. So if I go from I'm to recording, and I want to delete that entire kind of part of that sentence, I'll just highlight it and hit delete on my keyboard. And when I hit delete, I want you to pay attention to what this track, what happens to this track right here. So once again, I highlight what I want to delete. I highlight it and I hit delete. And it takes it right out of the track there. So this helps when you're going back and like that post editing and you're thinking about, oh, this may take me a long time to edit. No, you can just go through, highlight the word, the sentences that you don't want, hit delete, and it'll take it right away out of that. Now, if you wanted to, let's say, go to the end of this paragraph and continue talking, what you'll need to do is you'll need to put the playhead to the end of that track, and you'll need to hit record so you can start recording again. You can't go down here in the transcript and type out the sentence that you want, and it won't pop up that way. The same thing can be said about punctuation. So if you're going in here at the end where you see a period and you wanted to make that like an exclamation point, you just highlight, hit the letter E on your keyboard, and then you can go in and you can make that adjustment too. Thank you for attending. We'll send out all the resources. Have a good evening. Now you can take this text and you could put it into a Google Doc just by, highlighting, copying, and pasting into a Google Doc. So for those that I mentioned earlier about script writing or any other ways in which you're trying to interview someone, you can be able to see that full transcription that's there. Let's see, can you copy paste to repeat the selection as a type of repeated action? Can you explain a little bit more, Rosa?
So instead of deleting it, like let's say you wanted to repeat it. So if they're recording some type of a rap, I don't have the vocabulary, forgive me, I'm not a music knowledgeable person, but if they have a rap, I think it's called the chorus, that they might want to repeat over and over. I know I can be what I want to be.
Yeah.
If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. It repeats, I know I can. So they don't have to sing it.
It'll repeat there. Yeah, it'll repeat there in the text. So anything they say through audio, it'll show up right here in the transcription.
But they can so once they recorded it, they can copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. So they're not having to re-record it.
Yeah, they can if they want to. But if what you just told me, I know what rap you're talking about. If they said that over and over again and you transcribe that, it'll show up here. I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, it'll all show up there. So they don't have to technically go up here and copy and paste the tracks. It'll all pop up here in the lyrics.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Switching gears, once we've done the transcript, now let's say you have some students that, bring in different languages to your classroom, and students want to record in their home language. If they go up to the top, hit settings, go down to language, and then you'll be able to see the different languages that we offer inside of Soundtrap. And now I know there are some languages that are not up here, two of them being Mandarin and Tagalog, that a lot of folks in LUSD have been asking about, and we've been telling our product team this is something that we're trying to get into the works. But right now, as of right now, these are the only languages that we offer. So for example, if I spoke Portuguese and I wanted to do a recording in Portuguese, I would need to go to settings, go down to language, go to Portuguese, and then I can start to do my recording. a note to make of that is once you change the language to something that's outside of English, it's going to change the entire interface of this screen. So the word create assignment will be in Portuguese, save will be in Portuguese, file, edit, settings, tutorials, and so forth. So that's just a note, when your students change the language, just know that, hopefully they know some of like the beginning words that they'll be able to get them to navigate them back. Any questions there around, recording, loops, collaborations, transcriptions, the languages? Any thoughts going through your heads?
I actually do. So like for a type of podcast, my kids are learning how to do writers workshop.
Nice.
Once they're done publishing, they can, I would have to obviously teach them how to do the podcast, but are there instructional videos for me I've never done a podcast, so I don't even know where to begin. But is there an instructional video in how to teach the kids how to do a podcast? Because what I would like is to have them talk about or further research on. So they researched on Cesar Chavez. They wrote written submissions and then they gave them to me. So instead of doing that, really actually recording a podcast on what they learned about Cesar Chavez, and then we hear everybody's podcast. That's what I was thinking of, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you could do that. What you want to do is, let's say that you want all 20 of your students to do one podcast on Cesar Chavez. You'll just set up that recording, give them the directions of what you want them to do, and then they can set up like their own tracks. They can just save it. And then once they're done and they want to now publish it, or you want them to download it, they can go to file, export. All right, we'll go out. So save this. And it'll take some time to load up. But to circle back around to your question, as another resource that I'll send, we partner with KQED, who's a part of NPR, and they actually have instructional videos and different resources in terms of like graphic organizers for teachers that are wanting getting into podcasting. So it shows you how to map it out from, what sounds do you want, what characters do you want. It breaks it down to you. So I'll make sure to tag that in and send it out to Jerry when I send out everything goes.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm not sure what it's called, where they go into the room with a relative and they interview each other.
Yeah.
And talk about a little excerpt of their story.
Mm-hmm.
That would be magnificent because I can actually invite parents in and
Yeah.
get them involved.
Yeah.
So there is like some kind of a learning curve for me. Again, I'm not tech savvy at all. I have endeavors, but I have no, foundational skills.
Yeah.
So, but I could totally see this being something greater than me.
Yeah. And so that's another thing. Like if you have family, that want to come in and they record, or if students are at home, as long as they have access to Schoology, they have access to Soundtrap. So if they're at home and you want them to get some recordings of their siblings or their family members, they can do that and then bring it in. Also, this is something once you're done recording and now let's say you have a parent night or there's a community night, this is a way that you can show them, hey, this is what we're working on inside of the classroom to bridge that gap. Also, if there's someone in the community, like if there's like a famous scientist or a mathematician that your students want to interview, they can do that as well. They could like set up a Zoom call and like they can just hit record and it'll pick up all the audio that they're having between that when they're interviewing someone. So there are a lot of different ways that you could bring families inside to show them what they're working on.
That's a great idea. Inviting the first Pomona astronaut. That is just, that would be amazing. I'm going to try to get a link.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said before, I'm here as a support. So if you're like, hey, Justin, I want to do this, but I need help mapping this out, I'm gonna provide my contact information and you can just contact me and we'll get those things done. But I'm here to guide you along the way.
All right. Justin, any last words or final tips?
No, something that I'll just last say that like if there are more teachers on your like campus sites that you think will like this, feel free to connect me. And then also I do on-site trainings. I've done several elementary, middle, and high school trainings across LAUSD. So if it's something that you think your principal will be interested in, feel free to contact me. My email address is here. I'll share my email address with Jerry as well, and I'll be happy to support you all. But other than that, thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today.
Thank you all. Thank you.